It is a great honor and a privilege to introduce Miriam Bolle. Your maiden name was Levy, and we're here in your beautiful home in Jerusalem. And Miriam, you were born in Amsterdam in 1917. And you are the youngest 106-year-old I've ever met. But Miriam, thank you so much. I so appreciate it. If you could tell us a little bit about your parents and your family and growing up in Amsterdam. What do you remember about your family?
About my family?
About your parents?
Yes, of course. I came here with my parents and my sister. I came here in 1944 in exchange of Templars. Did you hear about it? Yes. There was a program that Templars who were Nazis and were imprisoned here during the war and went to go to Germany to fight for Hitler. And there were Jews from the mandatory period who were stuck in Europe. And the number of Jews who were stuck in Europe and the number of Templars who wanted to go to Bergen was different. And there were more Templars than Jews. So we were to fill up the difference between the Templars and the Jews. And that were only some 200, it is called Transport 222. It wasn't exactly 222, but approximately.
And you were on that transport?
And we were among them, and that's very amazing and lucky, because they were in Bergen Belsen, where we were freed today, before 79 years, I think. Because there were thousands of people in Bergen Belsen with the same papers as we had, and we were chosen, and we don't know by what, I don't know how to say it. We don't know why the Germans choose us among the thousands of Jews who were there. Is it clear what I'm telling?
Very much. Wow. And Miriam, can I ask you, how many in your family, your parents, when they got married, how many children did they have? How many?
Two. Two. That was usual. In Holland, there were two, not only with the Jews, with the Christians too, mostly two children. There were people who had 6 children, or even 7 children, but the norm was 2 children. In my family, every uncle had 2 children, and not only in my family. It was in Holland was as usual.
And were you the youngest, or?
No, I was the oldest. I was 6 years and only child. My sister was born 6 years after I was born.
And what was her name, your sister's name?
My sister, in Dutch, her name was officially Sophie Greta. Sophie is Sophie. But we never were, she was never called Sophie, because my father had for his 2 daughters the names of 2 dogs. I was Puck and she was Bob. But when I was 12 years old, I said I don't want to be called Puck anymore. I want to be called Miriam. And from my 12th year on, I'm called Miriam. But my sister was called until she came to Palestine, to Palestine. It was called then, was Bob.
And your parents, were they many generations in Holland?
Yes, both.
Both. And your grandparents?
Yeah, also.
Do you remember your grandparents?
No, I had only one grandmother, because the parents of my father died when he was young. And my grandfather also died when I was young. I knew also only my grandmother, and she was born in Holland. She was even named after the Queen.
And did you come from quite a traditional or religious family?
Yes, yes.
And your mother lit Shabbos candles?
Yes.
And you had all the festivals?
Yes, and we had a kosher kitchen. And on Shabbat and Chagim, and my father didn't work.
And do you remember going to the shul, to the synagogue? Do you remember going to the synagogue?
Going to synagogue, not every Shabbat, but going to synagogue.
And which synagogue did you?
My father, it was called several. In our neighborhood there was a synagogue, and we went there. On Chagim, my mother went to the great synagogue, it was called in Amsterdam.
And did you go?
And my father too, and I
You went with?
But I went to no, it was not a synagogue, but there were tefillot at the youth organization. I was a member of a of a Jewish youth Zionist, Orthodox youth organization, and they had services on Shabbat and Chagim, and I went there. I didn't go with my parents. I went there from the age of 12.
And Miriam, did you go to a public school or a Jewish school?
No, my father was a Zionist, and that was very particular at the time. The whole family and everybody, we knew that he was crazy, because what have we to do in Palestine? We are Dutch. We don't want to go to Palestine. My father was of the opinion that Jews had to have a country of their own, independent to be of the good or bad of the surroundings, and they had to be a Jewish state. Not that he wanted to go there, but as I tell you, he was a Zionist. And we got a Zionist education. We went to it. There was one Jewish elementary school. There was one Jewish college. And we went to these schools. So we didn't have many contacts with Christians, because in Amsterdam there were 80,000 Jews. They were 10% of the population. So we knew Christians, but not many.
And do you remember the name of the school?
Yes, it was called Herman Elte School. Herman Elte was the founder of the school, I think.
And where you lived, did you have a lot of neighbors? Were most of the neighbors Jewish in the area that you lived?
We lived in a neighborhood, and that's very difficult to explain to people here. There were many Jews living in our neighborhood, but also no Jews.
And did you get on well with the non-Jewish children?
Yes, we played together, yes.
And did you ever experience any anti-Semitism growing up?
No. You can't tell it anti-Semitic. Jews could not be mayors. A Jew could not be a mayor. After the war, there were, I think, 3 Jewish mayors in Amsterdam. But before the war, a Jew could not be a mayor. There were some restrictions. There was a very sophisticated club. Jews could not be members of this club. But We didn't suffer from anti-Semitism. Most Christians, there were people who say we don't. My father told me once he was a member of the direction of a firm for import from China and Japan, and he had clients. And one of his clients was a non-Jew who told my father, "Mr. Levy, you are a nice man, but the Jews are not okay." And my father asked him if he knew Jews who were not okay. No, he didn't know them. If he knew any Jews, no, he didn't know Jews. He came not from Amsterdam, he came from towns, and there were towns where there were no Jews living. But the Jews were not okay.
And what did your mother do? Did your mother work?
My mother was a housewife, as all mothers were. It wasn't, nobody thought about that a woman could work. Not only with our family. It seldom happened that a woman worked, but it was not common.
But you had a very happy childhood?
Yes.
And Miriam, what is your earliest memories of your childhood?
Oh?
What is your earliest memories? What do you remember your early memories of being a child?
I was 6 years old, and my mother took me to the zoo. And there were storks. And we stood there, and my mother told me that in a few months this stork will bring you a little brother or a little sister. And I said, impossible, that will break. It's too heavy.
And you were 6?
I was 6. Then I was 6. That's what I remember. I stood there and I thought, it's a bottle, it will break. I was always very realistic.
And Miriam, were you happy growing up in Amsterdam?
Hmm?
You were
Yes,
happy
yes,
growing up?
yes. I didn't know that I was happy, but I was happy.
And when the Germans came to power, do you remember things starting to change?
Yes, yes. That changed my life. I was already 18 then. In 1940, I was 23. And I worked as an employee of the Committee for Jewish Refugees. There was a Committee for Jewish Refugees because since 1933, German Jews were fleeing to Holland, and they had to get an apartment. They had to have food. Before 40, many German Jews could bring their money with them, but afterwards it was impossible. So they had to be food, to have food. And that's what the Committee for Jewish Refugees did. Not only that, many people tried to come illegal because the Dutch government was very, the number of German Jews who could enter Holland was very restricted because the economic situation in Holland was very bad at the time. And the government was afraid that when German Jews would come, they would be, I don't know how you say it, concurrent. They would hurt the Jewish population. And the number of visas that the Committee for Jewish Refugees tried to get from the government was very small. But people tried to get illegal. That was not very easy, but not very difficult also. And the Committee for Jewish Refugees had to speak to it was called Police for Strangers, to get that these people were not sent back to Germany, because if they were caught, and they were caught, they were sent back to Germany. And then my boss, I was the private secretary of one of the members of the Jewish committee, and went to the police and had a good relation with his head of the police, and sometimes he succeeded in getting these people legalized, but not always. And then they were sent back by the police to Germany.
And do you remember the refugees? Did you meet them?
Yes, I met them. Yes. These people, many people came from concentration camps. Concentration camps were not the concentration camps we know about, but they were imprisoned, difficult situation. People, the German Jews were afraid to tell about it, but the president of the Jewish committee took them and asked them about what happened to them. And I was a secretary, and I sometimes was present because I had to take notes. And that's why I knew what happened at the concentration camp. And I said to my father, why don't you emigrate to Palestine, to America? And my father said, here I have a good living. He had a good salary. In America, I'm a schnorrer. And he didn't go. To emigrate to America was also difficult, but because the Americans had it was called a quota. You know about it?
They would only allow a certain amount?
Yes, a quota. The quota for the German Jews who came to Holland was hopeless, because every year 3,000 Jews are allowed to enter America, but these 3,000 Jews were already there. So the people who had 3,010 had to wait a year. But the quota for Holland was empty. I went to the American consulate and registered for entry to America. And I had number 3, 4, 5, 6. Only 2 Jewish people went to the consulate and asked for entry to America. But my father didn't want.
But Miriam, what you're saying, the story of Anne Frank, they came from Frankfurt to Holland. Anna Frank's family,
yes.
Otto Frank with his family, they came also.
Yeah, but they came with some money.
And also Hannah Goslar's family came from Berlin.
Yes.
Also.
Yes.
So
yes. These people who came in 35, 34, these people came with some money. But also people came without money, who had no money. But there were people who had money, but had to leave it in Germany.
And Miriam, can I ask, do you remember people that had come from places like Dachau in Germany, from the camp of Dachau near
I don't know from which camps they came.
And
I only knew that I did not every day say, but the few interviews that I heard were from concentration camps. I didn't know that.
You must have heard terrible stories,
Yes. And I told them to my family. My parents believed me, but my uncles and my aunts said, "Don't tell us at times these terrible stories. Here in Holland, this will not happen. You don't have to be afraid about that. A young girl telling these terrible stories, don't tell me anymore.
I think because people still remember from the First World War, Holland's situation in the First World War. So
they're neutral.
They thought it would be neutral again.
Yes, that's what they thought.
And how did you get the job to be in the refugee? How did you...
After an advertisement, I had to write, I knew German, and I had to write German letters to be accepted. And I didn't make very few mistakes, so I was accepted.
And how long were you working in that position?
Until I was deported, 43.
So you were with the Jewish community. You were very involved with the...
Yes, I was involved with refugees.
And where were the offices? Did they have a building where the offices were? Where was the building or the place where...
There were only a few rooms. It wasn't really an office. There were a few used in.
Do you remember the address where it was?
Yes, it was called Rapenburg. That was in the beginning. That was quite near to where we lived. Afterwards we went to the Lijnbaansgracht. And that was a big office already.
And Miriam, do you remember your address, your home address? Do you remember the street you lived on, your home address? Where you lived, your house, do you remember the name of the street?
Where I lived, yes. Plantage Muidergracht. I was, in the beginning, I was born in the center of town. I can show you a picture. But afterwards my parents went to a bigger apartment, and that was at Plantage Muidergracht. And it was in the same block as the Jewish theater from which Jews afterwards were deported.
From that theater?
Yes. We could see the backside of the Jewish theater.
So Miriam, working for the refugees and working with the Jewish community, when Holland was invaded, did you know that it was going to be very bad?
Yes.
From the very beginning?
Yes.
And how did your life change? How did your life change? It must have changed.
No,
terribly.
Because we were under occupation. We weren't free anymore. At the beginning, we didn't have to go to restaurants. Now it's not as it is now that when you have guests, you invite them to a restaurant. That wasn't usual. It was very seldom that we went to a restaurant, but sometimes we came. Moreover, the restaurant was not kosher, so we only drank coffee or tea, mostly. But it was very seldom that we went to a restaurant. But then we said, no, it's not so terrible, we will drink coffee at home. Anyhow, we didn't go to a restaurant very often. But afterwards, we weren't allowed to have the tramway, we weren't allowed to be outside after 8 o'clock, we have to be inside. Our bicycles were taken, and that's in Holland terrible. So we had to go by foot, anywhere.
And when did you start having to wear the yellow star?
Yeah, I don't know when it happened. I think it was in 41. We had the Jewish star, yeah.
And you remember wearing it? You remember having to wear it?
Yes, I remember. I even brought it here because I came here with the star.
And Miriam, do you recall seeing German soldiers in the street and...
Yeah. They came, because they came to our house very often to take us. But because afterwards, you know about that, the whole of Jewish activities was taken into the Judenrat, the Jewish Council. And the people who worked for the Jewish Council had a named sperre. That means you had a stamp on your identity card there was written, for the time being you are freed from deportation. So all the people who worked for the Jewish Council, and the Jewish Council took people for Jews that weren't real, but only to have them on their employees list to give them this sperre.
So because you worked there, did that enable your parents and your sisters to have it as well?
Yes.
If you wouldn't have worked there, you wouldn't have had...
No. And then the in the beginning, the Judenrat was not so important. Afterwards, it was they obliged the members of the Judenrat to do things that were not okay. And I didn't like to work there. But I couldn't take leave because otherwise I was not spared. My parents were not spared. I could not get a job with a Jewish firm because there weren't any Jewish firms anymore. I couldn't work as a secretary for a non-Jewish firm because they were not allowed to take Jews. So I couldn't take leave.
And Miriam, did you personally witness people being deported from their homes? Did you see it at all, ever?
Yes. Yeah. My father and my sister were taken from the house in May 1943. I escaped. They came, it was called a razzia in Holland, but in East Europe it was called action. In Holland it was called razzia. They came at 6 o'clock in the morning with loudspeakers and told the Jews had to be home because they were deported. And they said to my mother was in hospital at the moment. She had to undergo an operation in a Jewish hospital. So I said to my father, let's go to mother to the hospital. Then we were deported, we are together. And my mother would not be alone. And my father said, he was a Dutchman, he would do as you were told, we are not allowed to go outside. And he and my sister stayed and were taken. I escaped, I came to the hospital, and there they said, you can't stay here, you don't belong here, you have to go. And I couldn't go to my mother because they told me she is now in the operation room because if the Germans will come and deport us, she'll be on the operation room and maybe they won't take her from there. So I went out with my star and I didn't know where to go, or to go home or to go to where I worked at the Judenrat. A German officer came to me and said, do you know Dutch? Do you know German? A little now. I tried to, they said, where are you going? And then I said, I'm going to work. I will go with you. So he went with me. They wouldn't take. They thought I was a friend of this officer, of this German officer in uniform. And they brought me to the Judenrat. And I went in. This man saved my life, a German.
So because he went with you, it saved your life?
Yes. He knew that when I went with him, they won't take me. There were tens of Nazis, of Germans who came to the house to take them out. As I told you, my father and my sister were taken to the camp in Westerbork in Holland.
But because you had from the Judenrat, they didn't help?
No, didn't help anymore. It was geplatzt. It didn't help. On a certain day in May, it was the Germans decided that half of the personnel of the Judenrat, which were 15,000 people, 15,000 people, 7,000 had to be deported. And when these 7,000 didn't appear at the place where they had to appear, they came in the morning after, in the morning at 6 o'clock and told the Jews they had to be home. They couldn't leave home because they were taken, and they were taken. But I was not taken because I went with this German officer.
And then what did you do after that?
I came home. I came to my home, which was closed, but they had keys and it was sealed. It was sealed, but I broke the seal. And I was there, and I got a command to move to another quarter. And I moved to another quarter. And after 10 days, after a month, the German came again with loudspeakers to that second quarter and with the same command to stay home because we were deported. I went out again because my mother was still in hospital. My father and my sister weren't in Amsterdam anymore. And I thought my mother is alone. But then I didn't succeed. There came a German soldier, took me by the arm and said, meet, you go with me. And he brought me to the headquarters of the Germans, and from there on I was deported to Westerbork, a month later.
And what happened with your mother? She still stayed in the hospital?
My mother was in hospital. It was so my future parents-in-law were also living in the neighborhood where I lived. And the German came and said, now prepare yourself because in 10 minutes we'll be coming and fetch you. They forgot them. So they stayed in Amsterdam. And my mother, when she was freed from the hospital, before the hospital was taken, she lived with my future in-laws. And on 29 September, a day before Rosh Hashanah, the whole of Jewish Amsterdam was taken to Westerbork. And Amsterdam was Judenrein. And then my mother came with my in-laws to Westerbork.
And were you in Westerbork?
And my father and my sister and I were there already. So we were united there.
And Miriam, how was your reaction when you saw your father and your sister? Mm-hmm. When you came to Westerbork and you saw your father and your sister, you must have been happy that they were still alive.
I was, yeah. I nearly knew my father. My father went about with a three-part custom and how do you call it?
A tie?
Yeah, a tie. Yeah. And there he stood there.
And the conditions in Westerbork must have been...
They're not so terrible. The conditions were not so terrible. There was not enough food, but in Holland there wasn't enough food. The Germans took all the food to Germany. It was war. We were hungry, but we were not dying from hunger. No. In Westerbork, there were nearly no Germans. Only on in Westerbork it was not terrible, but on every Tuesday, 1,000 Jews were deported to, you don't know where, to the east. We didn't know anything. The word Auschwitz, the word Sobibor, was not known in Holland. We were, and we didn't think about it. We were deported to the east or to the unknown. And every Thursday, 1,000 people were deported.
This happened every single week?
Every Thursday, every week.
And did you have any idea when they were taking, did they say they're taking for work or they're taking, did you know why they were taking?
Yes, Arbeitseinsatz. We knew that it was a lie because my grandmother, who was living with us during the war, also gave this command for the Arbeitseinsatz.
And she was a
We knew that it was a lie. She was 84 years old. We knew that it was a lie, but we didn't know what it really was. That it really was murder, that we didn't know.
And what happened to your grandmother?
She went to Auschwitz and she was gone.
And Miriam, what did you do during the day when you were in Westerbork?
In Westerbork, I don't know if you know that, there were nearly, besides the commander of the camp and some officers, only on Tuesday morning when the train was leaving. The whole organization in Westerbork was in hands of German Jews. And they didn't always behave very nice.
They didn't?
Sometimes the power that the Germans give them was too much for them. But not for all. There were also people who had something to say in Westerbork and who behaved okay.
And did you stay together as a family?
Yes, we didn't stay together. That is, my father and my sister were in one barrack, and I was in another one, but we met.
And what could you do during the day? Did you have to work or?
Yes, I had to work, but I was lucky. You had to have relations. You have to have people who knew you. I was working. There was a school. This school was also something. There were hundreds of children, and the children went to school, but every Tuesday there were few children and few teachers, because they went on deputation. But from Holland, from Amsterdam, there also came transport. So when there stayed, say from 100 children, there stayed 40, there came from Holland another 20 children or so. But on 29th, as I told you, Holland was Judenrein. There were no children, no parents anymore, only people who went in hiding.
And Miriam, did you ever meet a Dutch citizen that became pro-Nazi or?
Yes.
You met there? You actually met?
Yes. I had the youngest sister of my father was the head of a Montessori school, and she was dismissed. And her name was Levi, she was not married, her name was Levi, the sister of my father. She hadn't any contact with Jews. There was a very good relationship with my father and with the family, but she lived as a Christian. She didn't know Shabbat, she did nothing. And she had contact only with Christians, not with Jews. And as I told you, and she had a good salary. She wasn't married, she had a good salary as the head of a Montessori school. She had a neighbor that was the parents and a son, and the son was not 100% okay. He was very retarded. And this man was Westerbork and poor. And she gave him from her salary. She gave his family from her salary. This man, after 40, became a Nazi. And he actually, she lived in a nice apartment. He was, the family lived how do you call it, etage, in the same building. And at a special moment, she got a letter from the Germans that she had to leave her apartment for the Jewish quarter. And she left. Because he told her he wanted to have a Nazi family instead of her family.
And he informed on her?
Yeah.
How did he know she was Jewish? Maybe from her surname?
Her name was Levi. How could she be no Jewish?
And she had helped him.
Yeah. Yeah. And there were more. But no, as I told you, we didn't know many Christians.
And when you were walking to work, or when you couldn't use your bicycles anymore, when you had to walk, because you couldn't use, they confiscated your bicycles, when you were walking to work?
No, I had my bicycle because I was an important member of the Jewish. I had my bicycle. Once there was a rumor that bicycles were stolen, so I had my bicycle in a building next to our house, because it couldn't be in our house. So I took it from there and I put it in our house, and it was not taken. And afterwards I got a stamp that I was allowed to keep my bicycle.
And do you remember when you went to work, when you went inside the city, did you remember seeing Germans or Nazi Dutch saying anything when they saw you with the yellow star? Did you have any?
No. She didn't know she did anymore. In the beginning there were people who took the head off as a greeting. But afterwards they got accustomed to it. Jews were going with a star. They didn't molest us. They didn't. They accepted it as we accepted it.
And did you have any non-Jewish neighbors that wanted to help, or
No.
or friends of your father's, or
No. This policeman I told you about, of the police, he offered me a job at the police of the harbor. But I couldn't do that. I once went on vacation, I don't know how you call it, a furlough, because this policeman wrote a letter to the commandant of Westerbork, said it was very important that I return a few days to Europe, to Amsterdam, because things were not in order there and I had to arrange things. So I went on furlough 3 days. And there he offered me this job as an officer, as a police officer at the Dutch harbor. I couldn't do that because my family was in Westerbork. My father and my sister were in Westerbork. When I shouldn't have returned, they were deported at the next transport.
If you wouldn't return?
If we wouldn't return, couldn't accept it.
They threatened that if you don't come back, they'll deport.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Miriam, how long did you stay in Westerbork?
Half a year. Because I had these Palestine papers. My husband was in Palestine, in the mandatory Palestine. After 2 years, after he finished his studies, he could obtain a certificate for me too, as his future wife. And these papers, but I couldn't leave Holland anymore because of the occupation. But I had this paper, and that rescued me and kept me in Westerbork for half a year. I wasn't deported next week or after 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I was kept there for half a year until someone from the German administration came to Westerbork, and she saw my papers and she told me and many others that we were going to Bergen Belsen, to a German camp, and then from there on we would be exchanged to Palestine. And we were sent to Bergen Belsen from Westerbork after half a year.
And in Bergen Belsen, do you remember when you traveled, do you remember the journey?
Yes.
Was it did they put you in?
We were not in I was brought to Westerbork in a cattle train, but from Westerbork to Bergen Belsen it was a normal train, but it was very, very crowded. And it was very cold because it was in January 43, and it was very cold, but it was only, I think, 1 night or 2 nights that we traveled to Bergen Belsen. And there, when we arrived at Bergen Belsen, there stood there Gestapo, SS men with dogs, rouse, that we thought we can forget the Austausch. Yeah. It was a terrible camp. People died there.
And in Bergen Belsen, were you together with your mother and your father and your sister?
Yes,
or did they
I
put
was
you...
there together, not in the same barrack, but that was not terrible.
And
yes.
And were you put in a separate area of the camp? Did they put you in a separate area of the camp? Or?
Yes, no, not this. No, that was a camp only from people with these papers. Not only Palestine papers, but also South American papers, Honduras, Uruguay, Paraguay, and so. Yeah.
It was a separate section?
Yes, it was called the Sternlager, the camp of the Magen David.
when you were in the camp, were you together with your family or yet?
Yes, and I was, but yes, I was together with my family. So they say they're in different barracks, but we could meet in the evening only, because I had to go to work, and my parents had to go to work, and my sister had to go to work. But in the evening, we, after 6 or 7, I don't know, we were some. And we had to go to sleep, I think, at 8 or at 9, I don't remember. And then my father went to his barack, and my sister went to her barack, and but my mother and I went together.
And what type of work did you have to do?
That's also a story. I was assistant barrack head. The German Jews knew how to contact the Nazis. I was Dutch. I had no idea if I could bribe them, if I could ask them, if I could. I had no idea. I thought, what will happen will happen. See, now somebody, a German Jew who I knew from Holland, came to me and said, you will be the assistant of my wife, who is the head of Barrack 15. And so I was the assistant barrack leitering. And that was work to do. I had the work to do. I had the Germans came, and I had to make lists, and I had to go to people and ask them what nationalities they had, and I had to when the containers came with food, I had to, I don't know how you say it in English, to give the people their food. And that was a terrible job, because the food was always less, too few, and the people were looking at me if I didn't take too much for myself and so forth. It was very, very difficult to, this job was a terrible job, but I had to do it.
And Miriam, can I ask, did you see a lot of people starving, or people with diseases and typhoid? Yes. And you saw people dying?
And when something was, and they had a system, appel. You know what is appel?
They call people for roll call. It's a roll call.
Yes. We had to stay for hours in the mud, in the cold, and then people got pneumonia and died. That was terrible.
And you saw...
And they did it on purpose.
And you saw people dying, unfortunately?
Yes. No, I didn't see it, but I heard this died, and this died, and this died. I knew.
And Miriam, from your camp, could you see the rest of Bergen Belsen? Did you know what was happening in the other parts of the camp?
No. We were only in our, we came from the train, we had to walk for I think 2 hours, and then they came, I still don't know, I don't know how you call it. It was closed, no, it was not closed, it was went up.
It's like a barrier.
Yeah, a barrier. Went up. We came through, next barrier, third barrier, and then we came to the camp where we were in, and that was named Sternlager, the camp of the yellow stars.
And did you ever have contact with the other inmates from...
No. This camp was only for Jews, And we had little contact. We could have contact, but we were so the work was so difficult that people, we worked from morning 6 to evening 6. Not always was it heavy work, the difficult work, but it was so long that you were very tired, and after 6 you went to eat what there was to eat, and you went to sleep.
Do you remember what they gave you to eat?
Mostly was it a kind of soup with something in the soup. Yes.
And any bread? Did they ever give you?
It was vegetables, about very, it was always, and we got potatoes, 3 potatoes getanot.
Very small ones.
Okay. No, it was, people were very hungry. My mother, before the war, to eat much was healthy. The whole of my family, I have pictures, they're fat. My mother too. My father less. So he ate a lot. My mother, after she had left to be exchanged with me together, her weight was 35 kilo. Okay. But it came okay. She never got her heavy weight back, but that was quite okay.
And in the camp that you were there people from other countries as well, or was it mainly Dutch? In Bergen Belsen?
Yes, I'm thinking about it. No, I think it was only, it said it were not only Dutch people, it were also the German Jews who fled to Holland. It maybe said it was only Dutch, but I'm not sure. I think so.
And how long did you stay in Bergen Belsen?
Hmm?
How long were you stationed?
Also half a year.
And did you ever think you were going to get out? Did you ever think it was going to end? It must have been...
I was very pessimistic. I think we can forget about the exchange. But it happened.
So, Miriam, I want to ask you, when they said that you are now going to Palestine, when they told you, did you think that this was a trap, or did you think it was really going to happen? When they informed your family that you are going to be that you were selected to go to Palestine, did you believe them, or did you think this was going to be a trap?
No. I was very, I didn't believe it. I was not sure that I would live. I was not sure, because I also was hungry, and sometimes I was ill, and I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it, and sometimes I did believe it, because I'm young, and maybe I will survive, but not always. Sometimes I thought.
And where you slept in the barracks, you slept together with your mother on the...
Yes, niet together. There were one bed above the other.
Bunks.
And my mother was under my bed. Yeah. And my sister too. No, my sister was next to me. We had to climb.
So she joined you, wow.
Okay.
So Miriam, I think...
My sister had luck. My sister was a beautiful girl, blonde, golden hair, tall, and the Germans were looking for women to work in the kitchen. And my sister was chosen to work in the kitchen where they cooked for the Germans, not for the people of the camp, but for the Germans. And there was all the food that you need. There was butter, there was cheese, there was meat, there was all. And there the people behaved okay, and she was allowed to eat there. And that was, of course, and therefore she needed the meal that was given to us. And so my mother got a bit more because she didn't use the food that was given to us.
So in a way she saved. She saved you.
Yeah. It was not enough. But as I told you, my mother lived 35 kilos.
And how much did you weigh? Do you know?
I know. I was always me. I was not fat, but I was swollen. It was called oedeem. It was swollen. It was all water here. But it healed. I was always ill. After I was in Palestine, I was always ill. I was a healthy woman, but I was always ill. I had angina, I had sinusitis, I had all kinds of, because I had a lot less vitamins. And they didn't, in the kibbutz, they didn't know this. And, but afterwards I was healthy again.
And Miriam, can I ask, when they told you that you're going on the transport to Palestine in 44, on the train, the 222, what do you remember of that day? What do you remember leaving Bergen Belsen? Do you remember?
I remember that. You can't forget that. That it really happened, and all people cried. I also cried. I think it was in the night. We were taken. The young people were taken. Were taken in the night and had to go there 2 hours, and it was difficult because we were feeble. But it was not. It was not terrible. The older people were taken by a car, and I never forget it. I couldn't believe it.
And you were with your parents and
yes,
your sister?
with my parents and my sister.
And how did you get to the, did you have to walk to the train, or did they take you by car?
No. The young people were to work. We had to work. Though it was difficult, but never mind. You don't complain when you are freed.
And what do you remember of the train?
The train was not the cattle train. That gave us hope because I didn't believe. I didn't believe, and I believed. But when we saw the train was a normal train, we thought it will happen, and it happened. Yeah, unbelievable.
And was that train filled up from that night? Did they fill up the train from everybody from Bergen Belsen went onto the train?
Yes, we went. It was a train from Bergen Belsen to Vienna, to Hungary, Bulgaria, Turkey. In Turkey was a neutral country. And in our papers said that when we came to a Jewish people, we would be allowed to enter Palestine as permanent residents. That was in our papers. So when we got to Turkey, we were in a neutral country, and from there on, the English from Palestine took us via Lebanon and Syria to Palestine.
And when you got to Turkey, did you have time to go into the city or to meet other Jews?
No, we were there only one day. Anyway. But the government of Turkey gave us a dinner, and it was a very fat dinner with oil and fat, and people were very sick.
And how did you feel when you knew that you were no more in Germany and you were no more in...
I couldn't believe it. It was a dream. And we had the luck that my parents and my sister also came. There were people who had to leave, part of the family.
Which is heartbreaking. It's
terrible. And I was to meet my husband.
So I want to ask you, Miriam, how did you meet your husband?
That's also a story. At a certain moment, people came to Bergen Belsen, the Germans, and read names from a list. The names of my parents and my sister were called. My name was not called. So, and that's also a miracle. I went to these people, I spoke Dutch, I spoke German, and that was very important. And I said, I belong to the family who had been called, but my name was not called. And the Germans also had a lie, families will be kept together. It was a lie. But I said, and so they asked me my particulars when I was born and so on, and then they said, go to your family. And when I came to Palestine, that also we didn't know that the whole Yishuv was full of this transport. All the papers had list of names and knew that people were coming from Germany and were saved and so on. But that we didn't know. We came to Palestine. Nobody was allowed to get, because they were afraid that they were I don't know what it is. Traitors.
Or spies.
Spies, yes. They were spies. But they brought us to Atlit. In Atlit, before we go to Atlit, we arrived at Haifa. We come from Haifa to Atlit in autobus. And there, and the bus stopped a moment, and there is somebody who, I think, he bribed the police and asked if he could do something for us, a Jew. And I said, no, I don't know if my fiancé knows that I'm coming, that I came. And he said, who is your friend? I said, that's Leo Bolle. I know from Kibbutz Yavne. I know him because my daughter is also in Kibbutz Yavne. The Yishuv was small. So he wrote a postcard to Kibbutz Yavne, telephone there wasn't, that I came, that he saw me. And this card arrived a day after that, not as it is today, so it arrives after some months. No, it arrived the day after that. My husband got, my fiancé got this postcard, and then he was sure that I was there. After 3 days, the police, the English mandatory police, freed us from Atlit. They saw there were no spies, and then he stood there.
And you saw him.
Yeah.
It was incredibly emotional when you saw him.
Yeah.
And Miriam, how did you meet him? And where did you meet your fiancé, Leo? Where did you meet him first?
In Holland?
Yes.
He was president of the youth organization. I spoke about, yeah.
And when you first saw him...
He was an idealist. He went to Palestine. Everybody said he was crazy. He came from a well-to-do family. He had to, they told him, you are crazy, you can stay here, you will get a job, you will get a family, why do you leave for Palestine? But he left. And afterwards, it showed, it was not, he didn't do that on that purpose, but that he was the least crazy than the people who stayed.
So true. And when you saw him, did you both decide to get engaged straight away, or how long did you know each other?
Yeah. No, he and I, we thought, it's not, we don't know if there will be the same relation between us, because he had a quite other life than I had. But when we saw each other, it was as before.
And when he said he's going to Palestine, to mandatory Palestine, were you upset that you were being separated?
Yes.
It must have been very difficult for you.
Yes.
And were you going to join him? Did you feel you wanted to come and join him?
It was so. I was young. It was used usual in Holland. You got married when the man is able to keep his wife.
To support?
Yeah, to support his wife. Now my father said, you don't go with him? This boy is still not able to support the wife, and it's not done. And I was also a bit afraid. I thought, what can I do? He is studying. What can I do? I can't be a secretary. My Hebrew is not good enough. What can I do? But tough.
And he's the one that enabled the papers. He gave you the certificates.
Yeah.
If it wouldn't have been for your fiancé,
yes,
then your family might not have made it. You might.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
He really saved your life.
No, it was not only who's. There wasn't. We didn't know that. There was that organization, the Dutch, the Ergun Ole Holland, the Dutch.
It's organization.
Organization, and they had contact with the Jewish agency, and they got certificates for everyone who knew a name, got on Red Cross forms the same text that if so and so would be in a neutral country, he could be a permanent resident in Palestine. So all these people who were in Belsen had the same papers as I had. Yeah. But in this case, of course, it was not difficult to find a relation because my fiancé was there.
But Miriam, that they chose you and your family to go on that train. I think there was a little bit more than 222, but that's not a lot of people. 222 is... And how was your reaction when you came into Palestine, into Eretz Yisroel, when you saw Haifa?
Well, when we came, at Rosh Hashanah, we got in the tunnel. And when we came, everybody cried. We tried to sing Hatikva, but not much came out of it. And the train, all kind of the cars were small then, and they came along the train rode not very fast, and they threw us grapes and chocolate and all kind of things. It was unbelievable, a dream.
So how old were you when you came to Israel? How old were you at this time when you came? When you arrived after Bergen Belsen, how old were you?
I was 27.
27. And when did
26.
When did you get married?
In Yavne, in Kibbutz Yavne. I got married after 6 weeks. The kibbutz was young. Every fortnight there was a chatuna. And there were 2 chatunot before me, so I had to wait until I was allowed to have chuppah.
And
after 6 weeks, that was.
And your parents and your sister were there?
Yeah.
They must have been...
And the kibbutz, it was not used that many people came to the chatunot, the family and some friends, but Yavne invited some people who came together with me. Not family, but who came together. So it was, for Yavne, it was a big wedding.
And where did you and your husband, did you remain on the kibbutz?
We remained 3.5 years because my husband wanted to complete his studies at the university. He only had BA and he wanted to go to MA and so forth.
What did he study? What was he studying? What did your husband study?
Jewish sciences.
And at which university?
Here.
In the Hebrew University?
Hebrew University, yes. He knew Hebrew. Very good.
And he got his MA? Did he receive his MA? Did he receive it? He got his MA eventually?
Yes, he got even and that was in Holland. He was sent by the Jewish agency for 2 years as a shaliach to Holland to teach there. And in that time he wrote his dissertation to get his doctorate. And there he got the title of doctor.
And what was his doctorate on? What subject was his doctorate on? Or what was the title of his doctorate?
Yes. It was the end of the autonomy of the Jews of Holland. When in Holland came Jews, Portuguese and Ashkenazi Jews, they had autonomy. They didn't have any they didn't have the Dutch state was a state and the Jewish were a state inside that state.
They had their own...
But people wanted, there were Jews who wanted assimilation. And they wanted to be accepted by the Dutch authorities, by the Dutch state. And that came about in the end of the 18th century. And my husband wrote the debates that were between people who said that it will bring assimilation, and people said we had to be accepted by the state.
And Miriam, what happened to your husband's family?
They didn't know. One of his brothers, he had 2 brothers, one of his brothers survived Bergen Belsen. He also had that paper, but he was with the Austausch. I told you there were thousands of people with the same papers, but only 225 were exchanged.
And he didn't come on.
And he didn't come on that day.
And what happened?
But he survived.
And the other brother?
No, the rest didn't. Not his father, not his mother, no.
Does he know, do you know where they were sent?
Hmm?
Do you know where they were sent? Were they sent to Auschwitz on the transport, or?
I don't know. No, when they were in Bergen Belsen. They died of hunger,
In Bergen
of
Belsen?
pneumonia.
In Bergen Belsen?
Yeah.
It must have been so traumatic for your husband to know that.
Yeah.
And Miriam, I want to ask you, when you came to mandate Palestine, to Eretz Yisroel, and this was in the middle of 44, the war was still going, did people ask you what's happening in Europe? Did people ask you questions where you came from? Could you speak about what was happening?
No, it was not done at the time. I didn't want to. I didn't want to. I didn't want to. I don't know if you know that I wrote letters to my future husband. Do you know about
These
that
are the
book?
letters that were never sent.
Hmm?
I think it's a whole lot of letters that you never sent.
Yeah, and that was a book. That is a book. Now, I wrote these letters because I wanted to tell him afterwards, if I would survive, I would to tell him what happened to the Jews, and not only to the Jews, what happened in Holland during the war. And when I was freed from Bergen Belsen, 10 days in the train, I thought I won't do it. If we have children, I don't want my children to be bothered by what happened in Holland. We begin a new life, and I put the letters, I succeeded in to keep the letters. I put the letters in a cupboard, and I forgot about them. You don't believe it, but I forgot about them. We had our troubles in the beginning. I didn't adjust to the kibbutz very good, but I thought my husband is happy in the kibbutz. I'm less happy, but I was not unhappy, but I wasn't really happy. And when we in Jerusalem, it will be the other way around. I will be happy, and he will not be happy. Happy. But it came about that he decided to study in Jerusalem. We came to Jerusalem in 47. Jerusalem was I don't know.
It was under siege. It was starting with the war.
Yes. And there was not enough offer. We had a baby who got sick because he didn't get enough vitamins and enough food. Afterwards, when the state was called, we came here without a penny. We had to build our future. We had enough troubles, and in the time of the mandate, there were shootings, there was curfew, there were all kinds of things. We had our troubles and our choice. So I didn't think about it. My sister, who was in Yavne, she talked about it, and she told the school children in Yavne what we did at Pesach. We did at Pesach something. We were allowed to do something. And she told me what she told me. I said, it's a good story, but I think you are a mistake. I don't think it was so. And then I thought about the letters. I thought, but I wrote about it. And I saw it in the letters, and I saw what I told, what we were doing during Pesach. And then my sister translated it because I was written in Dutch for her children who didn't know Dutch. And then the children said, if Miriam wrote about that, we want to know the rest. And so my sister translated it with her granddaughter, with the help of her granddaughter. And then I thought, what am I to do with these letters? It is Dutch. I brought them to Yad Vashem. Yad Vashem said they want to publish it, but they had no money. And I sent it to Holland, and Holland published the book.
It's in Dutch?
No, from Dutch.
Into English?
No, they published the book from the letters.
From the letters.
Yes, they made a book about it. Yeah.
And Miriam, what happened in Pesach? What happened in the Pesach?
We were allowed to pray.
And this is in Bergen Belsen?
Yeah, by the Germans. And it had to be 1 hour, but we were allowed 1 hour and a half. So in our barak where we were, there was the wife of the Chazan. And the Chazan sang the Haggadah, and he said to me, I have to tell the story. So I told the story, and he sang, and it was a very nice. Of course, we had nothing. We had we had a carton. A carton was Seder's school.
Matzah or?
Yeah, matzahs we had some water instead of wine. We had, it was all symbolic. But it was nice. It was very nice.
So this was a Seder in Bergen Belsen?
Yeah, yeah.
And you were part of the...
Yeah, yeah.
And your mother and father and your sister, they were there as well?
They were there. Yeah.
It's so special. It's so...
Yeah.
Did you tell your husband about the letters?
Hmm?
Did you ever show the letters to your husband?
No, never. Never. And I don't... I'm glad that I didn't show him. My husband was very... my husband didn't agree with what the Judenrat did. And I told him, you can't judge it. You can't imagine how the situation was. Afterwards, he got a bit less critics, because in the whole of Europe, it was the same thing with the Judenrat. In Hungary, in Germany, in Austria, everywhere.
Miriam, it is incredible.
Yes. I always say it's a very interesting story. I'm not interesting, but what happened to me is interesting.
So Miriam, it is not only interesting, it is unbelievable.
You didn't know anything.
It is incredible, your story. It is something miraculous.
Yeah. And it's strange that very few people in Israel know about this exchange. When I get here, children or other people from Yad Vashem, they know about it. They don't know about it. It was on television years ago, but many people don't know about it.
Miriam, I just want to thank you. I am so grateful to you, Miriam. Miriam, it's
you
fine.
Have to be.
Miriam, I am so grateful to you. I am in awe. I really am. There are no words. Not only your story, but you're unbelievable. Mm-hmm. You know what you went through, and you're so positive.
But my English is terrible.
Not at all, Miriam. You are. It's just incredible. It's Nissim. You had miracles. so that a German soldier would take you and save your life,
Yeah.
that your fiance would send you the papers.
Yeah.
So many miracles that you stayed together as a family.
Yes, yeah.
It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I am so grateful to you, Miriam, from the bottom of my heart.
Don't say so. You don't have to be
extremely,
grateful. It happened.
Miriam,
I did it, and I always tell people, my husband did something. He left his Amsterdam, his quiet, prosperous Amsterdam, to come here, and the situation here was not so. With the Englishman, that was not so nice.
it wasn't so good.
He did something. I didn't do anything. Things happened to me.
Miriam, you are so modest, but it's been the biggest honor in the world. It's been such a schut. And Miriam, you should just, you are inspiration. Inspiration, and you're somebody we should all emulate. You are amazing, and you should continue to be well and healthy and just have all of Hashem's blessings, because you're unique in this world. And I'm so grateful to you. And Miriam, Miriam, if I can ask you, what message do you give? If I can ask you, what message do you give
I don't have a message. I don't have a message. People ask me, I don't have a message.
But coming to Israel and having our own country, it's important that you live in Israel. It's important.
Yes, it is. I don't like what happens today, but there is of Dutch television. There is a program, six programs from Dutch television, 75 years Israel, and it's very leftist, and they interview nearly only people who are negative towards Israel, but not all.
But Miriam, you've seen...
And they also ask me, which message? I don't have a message. I'm rather pessimistic after I hear about anti-Semitism. I have a neighbor here who doesn't come to Israel. He owns this apartment. He's also a dentist, and a very nice man. And I asked him if he feels anything about anti-Semitism in America, where he lives. Yes. Yes.
Because now there's a tremendous rise of anti-Semitism, and the people saying that the Holocaust, they're denying the Holocaust. So Miriam, what you've done in your testimony, what you went through, you're living proof.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just amazing. And Miriam, that you living in this house, there once, Old Wingate, he stayed in this house. Old Wingate, he stayed in this house, which is, he was...
Before I came here.
But he is an icon, and he helped the Jewish people.
Now this is also a story. I don't have a car, and when I travel by taxi sometimes, and when I say the driver the address, as he says, there are living only millionaires. I said, save me, because I came here as a refugee. I came, when we left Yavne, we had a one-room apartment in Romema. And there they began to shoot from Nebi Samuel. Here, Talbiya was empty. The people fled. The rich people were living here, and they were the employees of the mandate, and they fled. And my husband was in the Haganah, and there was also Reuven Mas. Reuven Mas was who lived here and was a kind of mayor of the Jewish community. And he told my husband, your wife has to leave the apartment because it is too dangerous. Because my husband wasn't home at night, he was in the Haganah. And he gave us the keys to some apartments, and I came here, and I had here we had here 2 rooms, and another family had other rooms. And after 10 years, this family left because they got money from the Jewish government because they had an apartment, but they had to leave it because it was in Mekor Hayim, and that was the front, and the Dutch and the army had to take this building. And that's the story of this. But I came here. I came not as a millionaire who bought this house. I got here 2 rooms and the other 3 rooms.
And Miriam, you go to shul on Shabbat?
Sometimes, not always.
And can I just ask you?
My husband was one of the founders of the shul. Yeah.
And Miriam, did you always keep your emunah? You always...
It's difficult to... my husband asked me, because he was a very religious man. I said, I believe that there is some Elohim who reigns the world. I don't think he boasts with people. I don't think I don't think. Even if I was so lucky, I don't think he boasts with me. He reigns the world, that I think.
And Miriam, have you ever been back to Holland?
Yeah.
And did you...
In the beginning we had no money. Afterwards, when we had a bit money, we came twice a year, and after 2 years. And then we came every year. But now that my husband deceased in 92, and my son-in-law accompanies me. And when it was Corona, it was impossible to. And since then, I don't travel anymore. It is complicated because I'm not allowed to travel alone, so I have this help to accompany me. My son-in-law accompanies me. It's very expensive, and it's complicated because of the help who has to be there.
And Miriam, did you often give talks? Did you often speak to schools and to...
Not to schools. People come here, pupils come here, yeah. And as I tell you, there are not so many people who can tell about it, so I quite often have people here who ask me about it. Yeah.
And have you spoken in Holland as well? When you went back to Holland, did you ever speak?
No. In Holland they come for pleasure. And
did you ever go back to see where you lived, to your home?
We were 2 years in Holland after the war, because I told you my husband was sent by the agent. I didn't, the idea to visit my father didn't come to me. I had a very busy life. But when I was old, and I thought maybe next year I would come, I came to the house. I stand before the house, and I think, no, I don't want to come in. Somebody comes out and asks me if I am looking for something. I say, no, I'm not looking for something. I lived here once. And then she came, oh, come on, because it's so interesting. Of course, not a Jewish person. It's so interesting what happened here. I know there was living another dentist. It wasn't a dentist, it was somebody who repairs tooth.
Like false teeth, maybe a technician. False teeth.
Yes.
A technician, most probably.
Yes. So that was his occupation. And these people, they were Jews, they didn't come back. And then she showed me that book, it's too complicated to tell. But And then I couldn't see where we lived. She lived downstairs, and we lived on the second floor. But afterwards I came. I saw the apartment. It didn't match to me. It's an apartment.
And Miriam, when you think of Holland, there were good Dutch people that risked their lives to save Jews. There were many Chasidei Matalam from Holland, many righteous Gentiles that saved Jews at great risks.
That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. They endangered the family.
Not only themselves,
and
but
not only
their family.
that, yes.
But there were those that informed on Jews as well.
They were most Christians, Orthodox Christians. They said it's our Christian duty to help the Jews.
So when you look at Holland, you look at Holland in a very favorable light? Do you look at Holland positively, very positive? Because there was...
Not anymore, no. Because I know what happens today.
And you feel there's a lot of anti-Semitism starting again.
Yeah. I can't say that many people saved me. As I told you, I didn't know many Christians. But I always tell me, we were deported on a Sunday from Holland to Westerbork. And we sit there waiting for the train. It was hot, it was terribly hot. We are sitting on the floor, of course, and people were free on Sundays. They didn't work, and they stood with binoculars to look how the people is deported. And I tell at every interview I tell them that I think how we left Holland, looking to big pictures, and when I see here the soldiers on Yom HaAtzmaut, I feel lucky.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that is the most incredible, because you saw it, you witnessed it.
Yes.
Miriam, there are no words to thank you. I am extremely grateful to you.
Okay.
Thank you. You should just be well.
Perhaps you want to drink something?
Miriam, we'll say l'chaim, but really, you should just be well and gesund, and thank you so much.